morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR and welcome back to another video. Starting in Generation 8, Pokemon weren't the only things to get removed from the game, as over 100 moves were also sent to Davy Jones' locker. Some make a lot of sense, like Octolock isn't usable in Scarlet and Violet because Graplock, the only Pokemon that can use it, is missing from Scarlet and Violet, at least as of making this video. Although, even in that department, there are some notable exceptions. Despite the fact that Skinny and Delcatty returned in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, their former signature move Assist did not, with the only real reason being that, well, it kinda sucks as a move. Same goes for Vivian, who made its long-awaited return in Scarlet and Violet, although notably without its signature move Powder, because, well, who was ever actually gonna use that move? Hitmontop's Rolling Kick, Executes Barrage, and Octillery's Octazooka similarly fit into this category of bad signature moves, and thus all of them got the axe. In fact, that's the only crime that a lot of these lost moves were guilty of. They were just bad moves. Stuff like Synchronoise, or Rototiller, or Comet Punch, or Rage. Even in the most casual of playthroughs, these moves are generally seen as useless in most scenarios. Many removed attacks served only to benefit Pokemon in the extreme early game too, like Dragon Rage or Steamroller. Generally, moves like this that got removed have decently viable substitutes, like Twister or Bug Buzz, which more or less accomplish the same goal. Some removed attacks simply have better versions that already exist as well. For example, Jump Kick and Bubble are both gone now, but their evolved forms of High Jump Kick and Bubble Beam remain. One move that may have been a part of this group, even though it really shouldn't have, was Signal Beam. As generally speaking, most special attacking bug types can learn Bug Buzz now, which is just better than Signal Beam, so we may as well remove it, right? Well, one small problem with that is that Pokemon like Espeon and Jolteon who relied on Signal Beam for coverage no longer have that option available to them. And these Pokemon don't learn Bug Buzz. So while Signal Beam's removal is largely inconsequential for most Pokemon that learned it, it did have some negative effects for a small crowd. Up next, we have a crowd of moves that were removed simply because their existence created very unique and niche mechanics that otherwise didn't need to be in the game. Think of moves like Flame Burst, Magnitude, Bide, Wake Up Slap, or Secret Power. These attacks were all one of a kind in some fashion, so odds are Game Freak removed the ones that had very little effect on the meta and did nothing but cause extra coding work for them. I mean, I would assume they just copy and paste the code from one game to the next, but who knows, not my area of expertise. It's worth noting, none of these moves were taken out due to cartridge space concerns, as Scarlet and Violet take up just under 10 gigabytes of the Switch's maximum 32 gigabytes allowed. Honestly, even blaming technical issues could be a stretch for many of these. I think the simplest explanation is simply that 90% of these attacks are useless, and they got tired of having to make new animations every generation for attacks that nobody would ever click on. One move that supports this argument is Ion Deluge, as it was taken out of the game despite Zeraora's Plasma Fist setting the same effect as Ion Deluge, where all normal type attacks get turned into electric type attacks. So yeah, likely not a coding issue, just the issue of Ion Deluge being bad. And now, honing in on more specific examples, let's get to one whose removal has been detrimental for several Pokemon: Pursuit. Many common top-tier dark types like Tyranitar and Weavile used to run this move to apply extra pressure to opponents in an unfavorable position, and they haven't really been the same since. To be honest, I miss Pursuit purely because it made Nuzlocke all the more intense when faced against Pokemon who could be potentially running it. I actually enjoyed the extra stress, but maybe that's just me. One possibility is simply that Game Freak may have had extensive coding issues with converting Pursuit's bonus effect into a Dynamax attack, as apparently many moves in Gen 7 had issues when being converted into Z moves, which is a fine explanation for Sword and Shield, but still doesn't explain why Pursuit is also missing in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Scarlet and Violet. According to many top VGC players though, Pursuit was never a popular attack in the doubles format. And since Game Freak tends to pay way less attention to unofficial competitive singles, odds are they may have been simply unaware of how good this tool was on certain Pokemon. So from Game Freak's point of view, maybe Pursuit just wasn't seen as a valuable attack and it was removed without much of a second thought. Falling into a similar category would be another attack that's even more valuable than Pursuit though, and that would be Hidden Power. Hidden Power used to be an amazing tool that would help expand many Pokemon's movesets with a coverage option they desperately needed. But in Pokemon Sword and Shield, assuming that Hidden Power functioned like other moves that change types like Weather Ball, it likely would have created some huge balance issues where Pokemon could use any type of Dynamax move they desired. And especially back in Gen 8 before open team sheets were a thing, the existence of Hidden Power would have just added a lot of randomness to the meta where you could just catch people off guard with unexpected max moves, which I'm sure a lot of competitive players wouldn't have appreciated. And overall, it would have just been unhealthy for the game. And while Hidden Power returned in both the Sinnoh remakes and Pokemon Legends Arceus, it was reserved for Unknown only, and once again was excluded from Scarlet and Violet. Likely because Terra Blast fulfills the same role, but in a much less convoluted way. So to put it simply, Hidden Power just didn't vibe with the new gimmicks all that well. And that's likely the reason why it's gone. Assuming terrestrialization gets replaced in Gen 10 by another gimmick though, I'll be interested to see if Hidden Power makes a return. And if you want to make a return to more of my videos, make sure you subscribe so you'll never miss a new upload. It's free and you get to learn more about Pokemon. Maybe one of the funniest removed attacks though is Skydrop, which I have to imagine was removed simply for causing too many issues. In every generation since its debut, Skydrop had a myriad of issues associated with it, some of which we've discussed in this channel before. From causing Pokemon on the field to be completely frozen, to making them enter a sort of undead state where the target stays at 0 HP, there were all sorts of things wrong with this attack. And all of that for a sub-optimal 60 power move that hardly ever saw any usage to begin with outside of VGC. Game Freak actually ended up having to ban this move from online competitions in several instances, just because of how buggy it was, before finally pulling the plug on it entirely in Gen 8. And if I were a betting man, I'd say this move is likely never coming back. One move that was taken out just before we got to see how useful it could have truly been though was Spotlight. Introduced in Generation 7, Spotlight is an attack that redirects all the other Pokemon's attacks in the field towards one opponent. This was likely introduced just to make your friends maul them battle royales, but it actually saw a fair bit of usage in doubles as well, as it could combat against other redirection-based moves like Follow Me, Rage Powder, and even the intensely hated move of Ally Switch, which became way more common starting in Gen 8. On top of that, it would stop abilities like Lightning Rod or Storm Drain from activating and redirecting certain attacks. So Spotlight definitely had a niche in the meta. However, with it being removed in Gen 8, it remains one of the shortest lived attacks in Pokemon history, lasting only a single generation. And it's the only move with this dishonor to not be a signature move either. Perhaps Game Freak thought this move would no longer be useful to the general masses with Battle Royales being removed in Sword and Shield, or they just wanted to avoid scenarios where people were nuking their own partners with Dynamax attacks. Regardless, Spotlight still didn't return in Gen 9, so I'd say this one is comfortably buried 6 feet under. A move that fits into none of these pre-existing categories though is Power Up Punch, which surprisingly was removed in Scarlet and Violet, but not Sword and Shield. Power Up Punch was certainly not as bad as many of the other axed moves I named at the start of this video. It also wasn't exclusive to a small pool of Pokemon, and even if it was seen as problematic in the competitive scene, they already took care of that problem by just deleting Mega Kangaskhan. So this one sticks out as a particularly odd exclusion from Gen 9. And while this next attack was never really competitively relevant, Revenge is another strange case of a fighting type move that survived Gen 8, but not Gen 9, despite being available on a wide variety of Pokemon. Even its Ice-type sibling Avalanche with the same effects survived the transition, so it doesn't even fit in with other attacks that have unique effects that also got removed. And lastly, one of the most interesting moves to be taken out this generation is Eternabeam, because yes, Eternatus is actually present in the game with its other signature move Dynamax Cannon, I might add. The main difference between these two signature moves though is that during Eternabeam's animation, Eternatus actually transforms into its Eternamax form, which is that giant creepy looking hand thing. With Game Freak trying to keep gimmicks exclusive to their original regions now, heck, they even remove Ash Greninja and Scarlet and Violet probably for just vaguely resembling a Mega Evolution, I would guess they probably took this move out just to avoid making any references to the Dynamax mechanic outside of its native region of Galar. Although another simple reason may simply be because Eternamax Eternatus wouldn't even be able to fit on the screen in most areas of Paldea. I mean, with how poorly the game already performs, Eternatus' big boy form may have just been enough to crash the game on the spot. That's a heck of a lot of polygons coming into play. At the end of the day, there are still some oddities that even I can't explain. Mirror Shot, Mud Bomb, Feint Attack, etc. These moves aren't awful or overly unique in any way, but they still ended up biting the dust. Surprisingly, even some of Pokemon's most iconic attacks like Double Slap and Karate Chop ended up getting removed, which have been around since the very beginning. Regardless, a good 95% of these removed attacks can be logically explained, which is good to know. But hey, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you guys next time.